Captain Elias Rourke had fought in more wars than he cared to remember. Scarred, graying, and weary, he had retired to a quiet town perched on the cliffs above the northern sea, hoping that the roar of battle would be replaced by the soothing sound of waves. The town's narrow cobbled streets and the gentle lapping of water against the docks were the kind of calm he had longed for. His medical tent, now a small, tidy clinic, was stocked with herbs, bandages, and the few surgical instruments he refused to abandon, relics of a life spent saving lives under fire. He had expected a quiet New Year's morning. Perhaps a few townfolk to stop by with minor scrapes or the occasional hangover from the previous night's celebrations. Maybe a cup of warm tea while he watched the sun rise over the icy horizon. Peace, after decades of chaos, was all he wanted. Instead, the sky erupted with a flash of pearlescent light and the deep, resonant beat of wings. Elias looked up instinctively. His hands, which had once steadied rifles and sutured grievous wounds in the middle of battlefields, now clutched the wooden edge of his clinic doorway. A dragon, massive, scales shimmering like molten silver, descended from the sky. Its wings spread wide, blotting out the rising sun. Perched atop its back was a small creature, wriggling and shivering, its chest heaving with shallow breaths. Elias's heart clenched at the sight. A hatchling, no more than a few weeks old, clearly ill and trembling against the cold. The dragon landed with a tremor that shook the stones beneath Elias's feet. Its amber eyes, wise, fierce, and filled with both fear and trust, locked onto him. The massive creature lowered its head until its nostrils were nearly level with the ground, gently nudging the hatchling toward Elias with her snout. He stepped forward cautiously, his instincts as a medic kicking in. It's sick," he muttered, though he was already moving. "Easy now. I'll help." The dragon mother, Aurelia, though he did not yet know her name, exhaled softly, a plume of warm air brushing Elias's face. The hatchling coughed weakly, a tiny, pitiful sound that tugged at the veteran medic's heart. He knelt carefully, his large hands trembling slightly as he lifted the fragile creature into his arms. Its scales were cool to the touch, its tiny wings drooping uselessly. "By the gods," Elias muttered under his breath. "What have you done to yourself?" The mother dragon lowered her head further, her gaze unwavering. There was no threat, no anger, only the desperate plea of a parent who would go to the ends of the world for her child. She had brought her hatchling to a human, one she had somehow decided could be trusted. Elias's mind raced. He had treated wounded soldiers, broken bodies, fevered children, and animals of all kinds, but a dragon hatchling? That was something entirely new. Yet he felt no fear. His hands, steady from years of experience, lifted the tiny body carefully, examining it. The hatchling's breathing was labored. Its eyes flickered weakly. Fever burned beneath its scales. "All right," Elias said softly, speaking to both the hatchling and its massive mother. "We'll take this one step at a time." He carried the hatchling into his clinic, the dragon mother following closely, wings folded but body tense. She hovered outside the doorway, occasionally nudging the hatchling forward with gentle insistence. Inside, the room was cramped but warm. Elias laid out blankets and herbs, adjusting tools and setting aside a basin of warm water. The hatchling shivered in his hands, small and fragile, and Elias wrapped it in a soft cloth, murmuring reassurances. "Steady, easy now, we'll get you right." The dragon mother watched, amber eyes tracking every movement. Elias could feel her tension, the silent communication that passed between parent and child. He realized something remarkable. Dragons, like humans, felt fear, hope, and trust, and she had chosen him. Lyra, a local herbalist and the only assistant Elias trusted for emergencies, arrived at his side. She gasped softly when she saw the hatchling, her hands clasped over her mouth. "Elias, it's so small and sick." "Yes," Elias said, his voice calm but firm. "But we can help. I've dealt with far worse, haven't I?" He glanced at the hatchling's delicate frame, then at the dragon mother outside. "We just need to be patient." careful. Hours passed. Elias worked with meticulous care, using poultices, heated compresses, and herbal infusions. He adjusted blankets, monitored breathing, and murmured gently to the hatchling, coaxing strength back into its tiny body. Lyra assisted, channeling warmth and energy, keeping both hatchling and mother calm. Outside, Aurelia's head moved constantly, watching, occasionally exhaling warmth that mingled with the gentle hum of Elias's ministrations. The connection between human and dragon was subtle but unmistakable, trust growing in real time. By mid-afternoon, the hatchling's breathing had stabilized. Its tiny eyes opened more fully, focusing on Elias. It was not cured, not yet, but the improvement was undeniable. Elias set it gently on a blanket and let it rest, exhausted but alive. Aurelia lowered her massive head, nudging the hatchling gently. Elias could feel the gratitude radiating from her in waves. The dragon had chosen a human medic, and in doing so, she had begun to forge a bond that could change the lives of both species. Seraphine, a visiting scholar of dragons who had been observing the cliffs, arrived late that afternoon. She froze at the sight. A human caring for a dragon hatchling while its massive mother hovered protectively. I didn't think humans could manage this," she stammered, all lacing her voice. Elias gave a small smile, worn from decades but genuine. "It's not about species," he said quietly. "It's about care, patience, and knowing what's broken, and fixing it." The hatchling twitched slightly, nudging toward Elias's hand. Aurelia exhaled again, a low, rumbling sound that Elias instinctively understood as approval. Somehow, this war medic, aged, weary, and expecting nothing more than quiet retirement, had become a lifeline for a dragon mother and her child. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the harbor gold and pink, Elias realized that this new year would not be quiet at all. But in that realization was a strange sense of purpose. He had survived wars, saved countless lives, and endured countless hardships, but nothing had prepared him for this kind of responsibility. The dragon hatchling stirred in its blanket, fragile but alive. Elias gently lifted it again, feeling the tiny heartbeat beneath his palm. Outside, Aurelia lowered her head, wings slightly extended, letting him know she trusted him entirely. Elias exhaled slowly. "All right?" he murmured, voice steady, eyes meeting the amber gaze of the dragon mother. "Let's see what we can do together." And so, on a quiet cliff above the northern sea, an aging war medic, a dragon mother, and her sick hatchling began an unexpected journey. One that would test patience, courage, and the enduring power of trust. Because even in retirement, even after decades of battle, Elias Rourke would learn that the greatest victories were not won with swords, but with care, compassion, and the willingness to help the most unlikely of allies. The morning after the dragon mother, Aurelia, had entrusted her hatchling to Elias, the clinic was alive with a quiet, tense energy. The small room smelled of herbs, heated blankets, and the faint tang of dragon scales, a scent Elias had never imagined he would learn to recognize. The hatchling, pale and shivering under a soft blanket, had slept fitfully through the night. Its tiny chest rose and fell in irregular patterns, each breath a reminder of how fragile life could be. Elias had spent decades in war zones, saving soldiers riddled with bullets, shrapnel, and disease. He had seen men die while he prayed over them, and yet, holding this tiny dragon, he felt a weight unlike any he had carried before. The creature was not human, not even remotely, and yet its pain spoke a universal language he understood with startling clarity. Lyra hovered nearby, her hands glowing faintly as she channeled warmth toward the hatchling. "It's weak," she said quietly, watching the creature struggle to lift its head. "The fever hasn't broken yet. It may take hours, maybe days, to stabilize fully." Elias nodded, his calloused fingers brushing over the hatchling's delicate scales. "I can handle that. We'll do this step by step. The trick is patience. Patience and observation." He checked the creature's breathing, noting the subtle rise and fall of its chest, the slight twitching of its wings. Every detail mattered. Aurelia hovered just outside the doorway, her massive head lowered so that her golden eyes met Elias's. There was no hostility, only trust, mingled with worry. The dragon mother's wings were folded, but the tension in her massive frame radiated a silent message. "Do not fail, my child." "I won't," Elias murmured, almost to himself. "I don't fail. Not anymore." For hours, he and Lyra worked together. She maintained the warm energy around the hatchling, soothing its trembling body, while Elias applied herbal poultices to cool its fevered scales, adjusted the blankets to support its weak limbs, and checked for signs of internal injury. Occasionally, the hatchling whimpered, its tiny claws twitching against the cloth. Elias whispered to it softly, as though words could mend more than medicine. "Steady, breathe. We're with you. You're safe now." Lyra glanced at him, impressed by the tenderness in his tone. "You speak to it like it's human." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "In a way, it is. Every creature wants to live. Every creature feels fear. And if you can acknowledge that, you can heal more than just the body." Outside, Aurelia's rumble shifted subtly. She exhaled a warm breath, letting it drift into the clinic through the partially open window. The hatchling's chest rose slightly more steadily as it absorbed the warmth. Slowly, imperceptibly, it began to lift its head, blinking at Elias. Seraphine, the dragon scholar, arrived at midday. She had watched from a distance yesterday, her curiosity piqued by the presence of a human actively caring for a dragon. Now, as she stepped into the clinic, she froze. The scene before her was unlike anything in her scrolls or texts. A veteran human medic kneeling beside a fragile dragon hatchling, his hands steady, his eyes unwavering. Lyra's gentle energy flowed across the room, and the dragon mother hovered protectively outside. You're treating it?" Seraphine asked, disbelief coloring her voice. "Yes," Elias said simply, brushing sweat from his brow. "It's sick, and I help sick things." Seraphine's gaze moved to Aurelia. "It trusts you." Elias nodded. "Yes, because I'm careful, because I'm steady, because I treat what's broken, not what's convenient." Aurelia exhaled another warm plume, nudging her hatchling gently. The creature squirmed slightly but did not retreat from Elias's hands. The unspoken bond between them was clear. Trust, earned through patience and skill. The afternoon brought a minor crisis. The hatchling's fever spiked unexpectedly, causing its body to tremble violently. Elias reacted instantly, lifting the creature into his arms, murmuring softly, and adjusting the poultices to cool it while Lyra intensified her warmth to counteract the chill. Aurelia's wings twitched in alarm, her rumble deepening, but she remained outside the door, trusting Elias to act. Minutes felt like hours. Sweat ran down Elias's face, and his hands ached from the delicate work, but he refused to panic. He had faced death countless times in the battlefield, and now he faced it again in miniature form. "Steady," he whispered. "Just breathe. We've got you. I've got you." Gradually, the hatchling's body relaxed under his care. The fever broke slightly, and its tiny claws unclenched. Elias exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. Aurelia exhaled in turn, the warm air carrying a soft, rumbling approval. Seraphine's eyes widened. I've studied dragons for decades, and I've never seen such care." Care is not about knowledge," Elias interrupted gently. "It's about action, about doing the right thing even when it's difficult, even when you don't fully understand. You can read every scroll in the world, but that won't save a life if you're afraid to act." Lyra nodded. "He's right. Magic, medicine, knowledge, they all matter, but none of it counts without courage." By evening, the hatchling had stabilized. It lay wrapped in blankets, exhausted but breathing steadily. Aurelia hovered closer, nudging her child gently and letting Elias stroke its tiny head one last time before evening fell. Elias looked out toward the horizon, where the last slivers of sunlight glimmered on the icy waves. This quiet town, once a refuge from war, had become something entirely new. A place where trust between human and dragon could be forged in a single, fragile life. This is only the beginning, Elias said softly, almost to himself. I don't know how long it will take, or what comes next, but we'll see it through. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. And you won't be alone. We'll help. She'll help. We'll all help. Outside, Aurelia's massive form folded against the cliff edge, wings tucked but eyes alert. Her trust in a human, a war-weary medic, had begun a bond that would ripple far beyond the quiet harbor. As the first stars appeared in the winter sky, Elias realized that his quiet new year would not be quiet at all. But it would be meaningful. And for the first time in many years, he felt the deep, steady warmth of hope rising in his chest. Even for a dragon hatchling, a massive, cautious mother, and an aging human war medic, miracles could happen, one careful, patient step at a time. The following morning, the clinic was quieter than usual, but tension lingered in the air like a stubborn fog. Elias had spent hours overnight monitoring the hatchling, who now rested more steadily, though its tiny body still shivered intermittently. Aurelia hovered just outside, wings folded but restless, eyes flicking constantly between the hatchling and the human who had become its lifeline. Elias, leaning over the small creature, noted the subtle tremor in its chest. Still weak, he murmured, brushing a hand along the hatchling's tiny back. But it's stronger than yesterday. That's progress. Lyra knelt beside him, her hands glowing faintly as she channeled warmth into the hatchling's wings. It's responding to your treatment, not just the herbs and compresses. It trusts you. He smiled faintly, though the fatigue in his bones was apparent. Trust. That's more important than any medicine I've ever administered. Without it, healing is nearly impossible. The hatchling stirred, lifting its head slowly. Its amber eyes, wide and fragile, met Elias's gaze. A faint, almost imperceptible rumble escaped its throat. Elias understood instinctively. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, of connection. Outside, Aurelia's rumble deepened, a low vibration that Elias had learned to interpret as approval and vigilance combined. She was protective but no longer tense in panic. Her trust in the human medic had grown through the night, tested and reinforced by his patient care. Seraphine appeared at the doorway, stepping lightly as though afraid to disturb the fragile balance. She had arrived to observe, to study, and perhaps to learn, though she would never admit that aloud. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of awe and curiosity, took in the scene. A human tending to a creature she had long considered untouchable, guided by instinct, skill, and patience. You really know what you're doing, she said softly, voice trembling with disbelief. I've studied dragons for decades, and yet I've never seen this, never seen care like this. Elias shook his head. It's not about knowledge alone. It's about action. It's about doing what's right, even when it's difficult, even when you don't fully understand. Lyra added, he's right. All the books in the world can't replace the courage to act. This hatchling, it survived because he didn't walk away. The hatchling's small claws twitched as it attempted to nuzzle Elias's hand. He stroked its scales gently, murmuring soothing words. Good, very good. Steady now. Each word, each motion, reinforced the bond that had grown overnight between human and dragon. Hours passed with quiet, careful attention. Elias rotated between monitoring the hatchling's breathing, adjusting blankets, and preparing herbal infusions, while Lyra maintained a steady warmth that seemed to strengthen the tiny body. Outside, Aurelia remained vigilant, her eyes scanning the horizon, but never leaving the clinic entirely. By midday, the hatchling's energy had improved. Its wings twitched, testing the strength that had been diminished by illness. Elias gently lifted the creature, supporting its fragile body. All right, we'll try a short hover. Just a little lift. Nothing strenuous. Lyra positioned herself nearby, ready to channel support if the hatchling faltered. Aurelia lowered her head slightly, watching with keen intensity. Seraphine stepped closer, curiosity overcoming hesitation. "You're teaching it to fly while it's sick?" she asked. Elias nodded. "Yes, flight isn't just physical. Confidence and trust matter just as much as strength. We rebuild them together, body and mind." The hatchling flexed its wings slowly. With Elias's careful support, it lifted into the air, trembling but steady. Aurelia let out a low, approving rumble, her massive body tense but controlled. The sight was breathtaking. A tiny, sickly dragon hovering in human hands, poised for its first tentative flight. "Look at it! It's flying," Seraphine breathed, awe in every word. "I didn't think a human could coax life like this." Elias allowed a small, weary smile. "It's not about being human or dragon. It's about caring enough to try." The hatchling hovered a few more seconds, gaining strength with each flutter. Then, slowly, Elias set it down on a blanket. It struggled briefly, testing its legs and wings, and then nuzzled his palm once more. Aurelia exhaled a warm breath, the vibration of her chest shaking the clinic floor slightly. A dragon's applause for a small life saved. "See," Elias said quietly, "even the weakest can rise with patience, care, and persistence." Lyra's eyes glimmered with pride. "You've done more than heal it. You've taught it to trust again. And that's something even magic can't accomplish alone." Seraphine, standing silently, finally nodded. I understand now. Strength isn't always about size or ferocity. Sometimes it's patience, courage, and the willingness to act when others won't." Aurelia lowered her head, nudging her hatchling gently toward Elias. The gesture was unmistakable. Trust, gratitude, and acknowledgement of his skill. The bond forged in the quiet clinic between human and dragon had solidified into something unbreakable. As evening fell, casting golden light across the cliffs and the harbor below, Elias, Lyra, Seraphine, and Aurelia watched the hatchling resting comfortably for the first time since its illness began. The dragon mother's massive wings shimmered in the sunset, protective yet calm, and the human medic realized that this new year, expected to be quiet, had instead become a turning point. Not just for the hatchling, not just for Aurelia, but for him. Even after decades of war and loss, even after endless nights filled with pain and death, he had discovered a new purpose: to heal, to guide, and to forge bonds that bridged species and worlds. "This is only the beginning," Elias murmured softly, gazing at the horizon. "I don't know what comes next, but we'll see it through together." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "And you won't be alone. We'll help. Aurelia will help. We're in this with you." The first stars appeared, glinting like tiny diamonds in the winter sky. Above them, the harbor lay calm, but a new chapter had begun. One that would test patience, courage, and the enduring power of trust between human and dragon. For even in retirement, even in quiet moments when no one expected him to act, Elias Rourke understood this truth. The greatest victories were not won with weapons, but with care, compassion, and courage. And this tiny hatchling, fragile yet alive, had shown him exactly what that meant. The following morning, the cliffs above the northern harbor were bathed in pale gold sunlight, the wind crisp but gentle. Elias stood outside his small clinic, holding the hatchling carefully against his chest. Its breathing was steady, but the slight tremor in its wings reminded him how delicate its life still was. Aurelia hovered nearby, massive wings folded protectively, her golden eyes watching every movement. Lyra moved beside him, a faint glow emanating from her hands. "It's stronger this morning," she said softly, "but we can't push it too far. Even a small setback could undo all the progress." Elias nodded. "Patience, step by step, just like yesterday." He adjusted the blankets around the hatchling, offering gentle warmth. The creature nuzzled against his chest, a fragile sign of trust. Seraphine approached quietly, her earlier skepticism replaced by quiet fascination. "I've never seen dragons respond like this," she admitted. "To a human, to your care. It's remarkable." Elias gave a tired smile. "It's not magic. It's attention, observation, care. That's all any life needs to begin healing. Suddenly, a distant roar echoed across the cliffs. Aurelia's wings spread, her head rising high as she let out a low, protective rumble. Elias followed her gaze. From beyond the harbor, a group of dragons was approaching, larger, stronger, and moving with the confidence of adults who had never doubted their own strength. Lyra whispered, tense. They're curious. Or testing us. Elias didn't flinch. Then we'll show them what care can do. The dragons circled above, landing lightly on the cliff edges. Their eyes glimmered with cautious curiosity. They observed the tiny hatchling resting safely in Elias's arms, the warmth radiating from Lyra, and the calm authority of Aurelia. One of the larger dragons stepped forward, amber eyes fixed on Elias. You have nurtured what others would leave to die. The dragon's deep voice resonated through the air. You understand the fragile. That is unusual. Elias looked up steadily. I know what's broken. I know how to help. That's all. The dragon tilted its head, studying him intently. You are human. Humans rarely attempt such things. You persist despite weakness, despite risk. Rowan, Lyra's brother and the one who had first introduced her to mechanical repair, stepped forward. Persistence is what saves lives. Not fear, not power, not tradition. Just persistence and careful action. The dragon regarded him for a long moment, then let out a low, approving rumble. Perhaps you may teach us. Help others who cannot fly, who cannot survive alone. Elias blinked. Teach dragons? He asked incredulously. You're saying, I can help them? Yes, the elder dragon replied. You understand more than you realize. Show us the path of patience and care. Aurelia exhaled a warm breeze, wings flicking gently. Her tone was clear, almost amused. He is worthy. Observe, learn, and accept guidance. The hatchling, sensing the calm authority of all present, attempted to lift its wings. Its muscles, still weak but steadily growing, quivered as it rose a few inches above Elias's arm. Aurelia and the elder dragon nudged the tiny body lightly with encouraging warmth, helping it maintain balance. Lyra's voice trembled with excitement. It's trying to fly again. Elias adjusted his grip, supporting the hatchling without constraining it. Care, confidence, trust, he murmured. Those are what make flight possible. Seraphine, observing quietly, whispered to herself. So this is why humans can matter to dragons, not through strength, but through understanding. Over the next few hours, the clinic and surrounding cliffs became a hub of careful activity. Elias and Lyra guided the hatchling through short flights and gentle landings, reinforcing its muscles and confidence. The elder dragons observed, occasionally offering subtle advice, adjusting the hatchling's posture with a nudge of warmth or wind currents. The bond between human and dragon grew stronger. Aurelia allowed the hatchling to spend moments alone with Elias and Lyra, watching patiently but without interference, demonstrating trust that went beyond instinct. The elder dragons, too, began to grasp the principle. Strength alone did not guarantee survival. Compassion, patience, and steady guidance were equally vital. By late afternoon, the hatchling managed several short flights independently, flapping with rhythm and confidence. Each successful attempt was a quiet triumph, witnessed by humans and dragons alike. The air was filled with gentle rumbles of approval and low hums of concentration. Seraphine finally spoke aloud. I see now. Strength is not just physical. Patience, care, guidance. These are true power. Elias glanced at her, a faint smile on his weathered face. Exactly. You can measure muscle, wingspan, fire breath. But none of it matters if life has no chance to grow. Aurelia nudged her hatchling gently toward Elias. Its wings fluttered, stronger now, and it nuzzled him in a gesture that spoke volumes of trust. The elder dragon stepped closer, rumbles softening as if to acknowledge the human's skill and courage. Lyra laughed softly, brushing her hair back. Who would have thought? a retired war medic teaching dragons to heal and fly. Elias exhaled slowly, a mixture of exhaustion and quiet satisfaction washing over him. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought with swords or guns, but with hands that steady the weak, hearts that refuse to give up, and the courage to care when everyone else walks away. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the cliffs in gold and crimson, the hatchling perched confidently on Elias's shoulder. Aurelia's massive wings shimmered in the sunset, the elder dragons watching silently, their eyes reflecting newfound understanding. Seraphine, standing quietly at the edge of the cliff, finally nodded. Perhaps there is hope for humans and dragons alike, if one is willing to try. Elias patted the hatchlings back gently. It's only the beginning. Step by step, day by day, we'll strengthen it. And in doing so, we'll learn how to protect and guide all who are vulnerable. The first stars began to appear in the winter sky, glinting like scattered diamonds over the cliffs. The harbor lay still, but the promise of something extraordinary had taken root. A bond between human and dragon, fragile yet unbreakable, formed not through force, but through patience, courage, and care. Elias realized, as he looked at the hatchling, Aurelia, and the observing dragons, that even in the quietest of new years, life could erupt with wonder and responsibility. And sometimes the smallest, weakest creatures could teach the strongest beings lessons they never expected to learn. Because true strength, he now understood fully, was measured not in claws or fire, but in patience, courage, and the willingness to care for what others had abandoned. And that was a lesson the world, and perhaps even dragons themselves, would never forget.